Day there, once again viewers, this is your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today guys, I wanted to have a chat about EA's other flagship first-person shooter for 2016, Battlefield 1. More specifically, have a chat about how Battlefield 1 has changed by comparison to its predecessors when it comes to the art of progression, and how those changes have potentially hurt the lifespan of this entry in the series. Something that really got me thinking about this entire topic was an image that someone had conjured up and placed on Reddit, which I will link in the description down below if I can find the link to it, that basically compared Battlefield 3, 4 and 1 by how good the player experience was at release and how it was later down the track in the long term. Now what the image displayed was essentially that Battlefield 3 had a healthy launch and a great stream of long-term content to keep players interested. Battlefield 4 had a shockingly crummy launch, with the game essentially being broken with very little innovation from its predecessor, but proceeded to become a fantastic game in the long term after constant support by the developers, whereas Battlefield 1 on the other hand had an amazing launch fed by the hype of a down-to-earth gritty first-person shooter that ditched the norm of modern warfare. However, much to the contrary of Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1 lacked features that would keep it healthy for the long term. Now, this was of course an opinion piece done up by the person who originally created said image, but I honestly really couldn't agree more with what the image was actually saying, as after all the hype for Battlefield 1 had died down, and I will admit I did get consumed by the hype train a little bit when it came to this game, I did begin looking at it a little bit more critically and realised that there was a huge problem with it when it came to long-term progression, at least in comparison to the progress that the previous games had made when it came to long-term progression. In Battlefield 4, there were weapons in the hundreds with a plethora of attachments and plenty of gear options available to choose from that really allowed for you to tailor your loadout to your very playstyle. Each weapon, vehicle and class had its own deep and rewarding progression tree that kept on rewarding you with new things and exciting things, which led to hours of rewarding gameplay. And then we get to Battlefield 1, and before anyone mentions it, I will admit that when you go back in time by a century to explore a new setting for your game, you are going to have a little less freedom, as you are going to be constrained by the technology of the era to make the game believable. Gone are the plenty of weapon attachments that can be found in the modern era. Gone are the plenty of vehicles and their customization options. Hell, even camouflages are no longer as prevalent in the game due to the era that Battlefield 1 is set in. And I knew this was going to be the case in Battlefield 1 ever since it was first announced. However, it is more than clear that the developers this time around sacrificed a lot of the progression that was present in the previous games in effort to create a more grounded World War I experience. A fair intention, yes, but from a long-term gameplay perspective, a damaging choice in my humble opinion. For example, if we take a look at the weapon lineup for each of the infantry classes in Battlefield 1, we have 6 weapons per class realistically. And yes, I know that there are technically more than that, but when 5 of those weapons have 3 different variations that each classify as their own entire weapon, they don't count in the slightest. So we have 6 weapons per class on the launch, there's no denying that. When Battlefield 4, on the other hand, had up to 10 weapons per class on the launch, plus an additional 18 weapons worth of common pool weapons that could be used across all of the classes. And yes, before any of you say it, there were way more than 5 weapons per weapon type used in World War I. And considering that there are plenty of weapons in Battlefield 1 currently that could be classified as experimental or introduced in the late stages of the war, there is quite a bit of leniency there already. If each weapon were to have 3 different variations that you could apply in the customization menu, I would be happy with that, but attempting to artificially extend the progression of the game by adding half weapons quote-unquote and making them as full weapons is an example of lazy game design. The lacking amount of content doesn't stop at the weapons either. Vehicles are stripped down to bare loadouts with very little ways to customize the vehicle to how it performs to your true playstyle. Which very conveniently moves me on to my next point about Battlefield 1 that shits me up the wall to no end, that being how fucking grindy the progression in this game actually is, and how badly the progression is displayed to the player. Back when Battlefield 3 first came out, people were pretty skeptical of the Battlelog integration and the fact that you had to launch your game through a web browser. And I know I might be the only person in the world to have this opinion, but I actually believe that the Battlelog platform worked wonders for the game and made it extremely easy for you to track your progression in the game. Battlefield 4 improved on this by adding more resources in the game engine itself, but Battlefield 1, however, has taken a huge step backwards when it comes to displaying this said information. You have to dive into menu onto menu onto menu just to find out how far you are along on your vehicle progression or your class progression, not to mention that it's pretty much impossible, from what I can tell, to find out how far you are to a service start on a weapon in the game engine itself. It's ridiculous how bad the UI is in that regard. But just because all of that wasn't really enough, we arrive at the progression itself. As I said before, progression has officially become a much grindier aspect of Battlefield in this game. My problem doesn't lie with the fact that you have to reach certain class ranks and then spend war bonds in order to unlock the items of your concern. The problem I have with it is that there is now a huge gap between rewards and unlocks by comparison to Battlefields 3 and 4, where unlocking things in a match was not a rare occurrence. It was a rewarding experience, an experience which has been lost in this game as you only spend your time unlocking vehicle kits and weapons that have huge gaps between unlocking them at times. Some of the weapons in this game are unlocked at class rank 10, which is a huge amount of grinding. Again, another attempt to lengthen the progression of the game artificially. What I'm trying to get at here is, when you have a game with lacking amount of things to unlock in combination with a grindy progression system, you don't have a great deal of content to keep players around for the long term. And don't get me wrong, players will happily grind away for something when the reward aspect is present and worth the time that is invested. I mean, just look at all the big ticket MMOs out there. Look at World of Warcraft. I mean, that shit can be fairly grindy, and look how long it's lasted for. But for Battlefield 1, I seriously have my doubts about its rewards versus the time it takes to unlock them, and just how much value there truly is there. And I hope this isn't a defining point for the remainder of the franchise in the future. I really liked the progression-based gameplay that Battlefields 3 and 4 provided. Battlefield 1 has taken a huge step back off of that progression-based gameplay, and don't get me wrong, Battlefield 1 is still a great game. It's immersive, it's cinematic per se, and it really does provide an excellent World War I shooter experience that isn't completely realistic. But by the same token, I still want to be able to play this game for the long term, and right now, with the progression that's in the game, it doesn't give me the mechanics to do that. So guys, on that end of a semi-rant, I guess you could say, and on that note, I figured we'd wrap up today's video and today's discussion, or rant, however you want to word it, surrounding Battlefield 1 and its progression system and the changes that have been made throughout the series. If you guys enjoyed today's video, then a backhanding of that like button would be greatly appreciated, and if you guys find yourself backhanding that like button and you're new to the channel, then why don't you go and backhand that subscribe button whilst you're at it, so you can keep up to date with the content in which I'm releasing here on my channel. Let me know what you guys think about this topic in the comment section down below. I'd love to know what you guys have to say, and as per always guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I'll be seeing you all next time. Have a good one.